What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday from Fair Play. I am here finally, 2 weeks later, over 2 weeks later, to do my review of Greenleaf. It is back, and I'm so happy about it. It came back with a 2-night premiere this past Tuesday with episode 9, you guys, and I had been anticipating it. It was good to have 3 shows back to back for my people. Well, I ain't gonna say for my people, because a whole lot of people watch these shows and actually enjoy them. But there was Underground, God rest his soul. And then there, of course, was Queen Sugar, which was extremely good. And it kind of knocked the edge off from having Underground gone. Not the same, but, it sufficed. And now we've got Greenleaf back. I think I like these breaks in between the seasons so that it gives time to bring in other series. I think I'm liking that. I really am, because I think what happens is when they let a whole season play out with like all, say, for example, 13, 14 or more episodes, once it goes off, you almost have to wait a whole year before the series comes back on. So I think with these breaks in between, it gives us something to look forward to sooner. You know what I mean? So anyway, without further ado, let me go ahead on and get started, because I've waited long enough. I've got my notes here. And the title of this episode is The Bear. And it pretty much picked up exactly where it left off with Gigi jugging Mac in his neck. Yeah, jug. I said that. That's what we say in the South sometimes. Jug. Yeah, that means stick. But she jugged him in his neck with the broken bottle, right? And so he's laying on the floor and he's pretty much bleeding out. And like a couple of minutes, a minute or so before he died, he's all gurgling and telling Gigi to get some help and call 911. And Gigi's steady asking him, "Where's Sophia? Tell me where Sophia is." And he's telling her, "I don't know, Gigi. Gigi, call 911, And she literally tells him that she's not calling anybody until he tells her where Sophia is. And he tells her, "I don't know, Gigi." Then the next thing you know, he says, "I'm sorry." And he pretty much dies at this point. And at that point, that's when Gigi realizes he's gone, and she's shaking on him and hitting on him, talking about, Mac, get up. And that is at that point that she gets up and dials 911. Now, y'all, I knew in that very moment that something was strange, and I knew it wasn't going to look right. The fact that he asked her to call 911 and she didn't, is like I had the thought in my mind. I said, okay, it went from self-defense almost to murder in like 2 minutes. And the reason I say that is because he asked her to call for help and she didn't call for help. And I know Gigi had to know that Mac was not dumb enough to kidnap and do anything to Sophia with her stalking him like she has been doing all season. So I felt like Gigi, when she went there, she knew what was up. I'm not saying she tried to kill him, because it was self-defense. But I think that she wanted, because we know she wanted him gone anyway. This situation, even at this point, right at this moment, I knew that things were not going to look right for Gigi, okay? So then they show her sitting outside. She's wrapped up in this blanket like she's cold. You know how they do people when they're victimized by somebody. And she's sitting there talking to the investigator. And of course, the investigator is already very suspicious of Gigi anyway, because he knows that she's been stalking him. And she knows how she did some things to him last season, some crazy things. And they had already told her to leave Mac alone. So he's questioning her and asking her why she was at Mac's house. And she was trying to tell him that she thought he had Sophia. And he told her it looks like she had a motive for murder and things like that. And he asked her, were her and Mac friendly with each other? And she was like, "No, why you ask me that?" He was like, "I just want to know, did he let you in?" And she was like, "No, he didn't exactly let me in." And he was like, "Well, did you break in or did you force your way in?" And she pretty much had to say that, yeah, she kind of did force her way in. So his questions were very accusatory at that time. And when you see her, Mac roughed her up pretty bad. I had no idea how much he had beaten her up, but he really messed Gigi up pretty bad. You know how you don't really notice that you've been beat up or that you are in pain until a little while after something? I know I go skating sometimes, and you know how you fall and you're okay that night or while you're there skating. But then, like, you go home and lay down for a little while and you get stiff, and then you get up and your body ache all over. Well, that's the same response that Gigi had to that beating that she'd gotten from Mac, from that fight they had, rather. I mean, he really messed her up pretty bad. So, which I think is what ultimately saved her, is the abuse, the level of bruising that she had. She was asking, the lady investigator was there too, the one that she had been dealing with all season. The lady was talking to her, and she asked the lady to check on Sophia for her. And Sophia, of course, was at home waiting on her. So she was safe. So from that scene, the next thing they show is Kevin laying in the bed with Aaron. So he obviously done spent the night with Aaron in his room in the Greenleaf mansion, because we know that they actually, you know, hooked up on the last episode. Y'all, hold on just a second. Okay, I'm back, y'all. Sorry about that. Thought somebody was at my door trying to get in here with me. Anyway, now where was I? Like I said, Kevin has obviously spent the night with Aaron, and he hears the baby crying on the baby monitor, and he gets up and sits on the side of the bed. And it's obvious that he's feeling really guilty. He's got that look, that goofy look he has when he's not feeling right about something. And he gets up to go and check on the baby. And after he leaves, after a couple of minutes or so, I guess, Aaron gets up and notices that he's gone, and he's sitting up looking crazy, okay? So it appears to me that Aaron done fell in love, all right? So anyway, the next thing they show is Gigi is at the hospital, and she's standing up being but she's being ogled by the doctor, the investigators, and they're basically taking pictures of her bruises and whatnot. I mean, she looks bad. Her knees are bruised up, her neck, her back. She's bleeding out the mouth. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. And the investigator man is kind of being real insensitive with her, because he just doesn't trust her. He just doesn't believe her story. That's obvious. And he's very suspicious of her. And so he's, you know, looking at her crazy. But the lady cop goes in there and asks her how she's doing. And so she's a little bit more compassionate with her. And I just want to know, why didn't those doctors dress Gigi's wounds? It's like they just sent her home. Nobody attended to her. She left with the same bruises and blood on her that she had when she got there. I didn't get that. So anyway, while she's in there getting dressed, Bishop and Lady May are sitting out in the waiting room. And Lady May is sitting out there reminiscing about her childhood with Mac, which I thought was strange, since her daughter is back there. They don't know what state she's in yet. They hadn't seen her yet. They just know she's in the hospital. But she's sitting out there reminiscing about Mac, who we know for a fact was a child molester. And we just can't, at this moment, I'm like, Lady May, what's going on with you? And I knew then she was more concerned about him than she was about May. But while she's trying to talk about him, the bishop interrupts her and tells her that his daughter is back there, and he don't know what condition she's in, basically. And he says that, excuse him if he does not want to talk about the man that tried to kill her. And this shuts Lady May up at this moment. I think she realized at that moment she better start playing a different kind of game, because the bishop wasn't hearing that. He was on Gigi's side, obviously. So anyway, Gigi comes walking out. She's real sore. She can barely walk. Body just aching all over. You can tell it. And she comes out there, and the bishop immediately gets up and runs over to her, and he starts hugging on her and kissing on her and everything. And Lady May lags behind. And it's like in that moment, because we know that doggone Lynn Whitfield is something else, honey, but we know that Lady May is something else. As she's walking up, you see her getting into character. You see her mentally transitioning from being sad and upset about Mac, and more than likely mad with Gigi, because we all know she warned Gigi about bothering Mac in the first place. And we know she was very close to Mac, in spite of the pedophile that he was and what he did to her daughter. She was still very close to him. As she's walking towards Gigi while the bishop is hugging her, you see her getting into character. You see her changing over from a woman that was probably mad with her into a concerned and doting mother. She transitions from that. You see the look on her face, which is very obvious. They did some good directing in that scene, by the way. But she changed her mood over. And when she got up on Gigi, she goes to her and she tells her, contrary to her her mannerism or the way she seems right now. She says she just wants to let her know that she's not judging her, and that she basically understands why she did what she did. She knows it was self-defense. And so this relieves Gigi, and she starts crying and tells her it was self-defense. And so the mom says, I love you. I know you did what you had to do. And she hugs her and everything. And this really relieves Gigi. But you can still see that May is playing a role with Gigi that she's never really played with her. When Gigi was in that car accident at the beginning of the season, that was the only other time I ever saw Lady May show some concern. And I wonder if even then she was being for real. Okay, because we all know how she felt about Gigi. She don't like her. We know that. So anyway, like I said, I did not believe this act that she was putting on with Gigi. So anyway, so Gigi goes back to the house, and she goes up to Sophia. Sophia's asleep on the sofa, and she wakes her up, and she starts talking to her. And Sophia, basically in the conversation, she just gets right into it. She got on to her about going to Mac's house after she said that she wouldn't go to Mac's house. But Gigi is questioning Sophia. Let me go back. She's asking her, where were you? I couldn't get in touch with you. What was the problem? And so Sophia told her, she said, I was with Zora at the studio. She said the night she was supposed to meet Gigi for dinner that night, her and Darius, she said, on the way there, my phone died. And she said, but Zora had called me and wanted me to come and pick her up. So that's where I went. And she told her mom she was sorry and everything. And then her mom said, I want to take care of you. I went over. No, she says, that what I did was self-defense. But this was after Sophia asked her if she was going to jail. And Gigi said, I don't know. She said, it was self-defense. And Sophia said, yeah, I know it was self-defense. But Mom, you went over there. And she, like I said, she told her, you had said you weren't going to go over there. And so Gigi once again told her, I know, but I was looking for you. And so Sophia told her it was not her fault that she did what she did. So she kind of jumped right over into that with Gigi. And so Gigi is going to have to face that demon as to why she really went to Mac's house. Was she really going because she thought Sophia was there? Or was she using Sophia as an excuse to go to Mac's house? Because she didn't want him around anyway. She wanted him to go to prison, but it's like, but if he dies, that'll be okay too. But she was going over there looking for trouble. I'm sure of that. I don't think she went to kill him, but she was looking for trouble. But then again, who knows? So also back at the house, the next morning when Gigi woke up, her phone was ringing, and it was Darius. But she didn't answer the phone, of course, because she ain't ready to talk to him. But before I get to that part, that same night back at the house, May was wanting to call Charity and tell her what happened. But then she convinced herself, and the bishop convinced her not to call and bother her tonight, but to wait till the next day, because she didn't want Charity trying to rush home to prove that she can help, offer some kind of assistance or whatever. So she decided to wait till the next day to call her. So anyway, Gigi goes, before, y'all was a little ahead of myself when I was talking about the next morning, but Gigi goes and she takes a shower and she's washing all this blood off her. I mean, she's aching and hurting, like I said, from top to bottom. I mean, she's in bad shape. Okay, so she takes a shower to wash all the blood off of her, and she's in there weeping and crying and everything because she's obviously very emotional about what happened. So the next morning, this is when Darius tried to call her, but she did not answer her phone. Okay, so then you see Kevin. He's gotten up, he's gotten dressed, and he's got the baby in his little thingy, little carrier thing, and he's taking the baby down to the maid, because the maid is like, where you going this early? He's like, I wanted to get on to the office, but really we know he's running from Aaron at this point. So he leaves the baby with her until Lady May and them gets up. And so he goes on to work. Then they show Jacob. I call him Cornball Jacob. Now he is at home. He's getting ready to go out and carry out some plan that he's got for the bishop. Because y'all remember at the end of the first part of the season, Basie had gotten himself in some trouble with the church. He gambled up all the church's money. And basically Jacob had to bail him out by buying the land back from him that he was going to build Triumph 2 on. That's probably the smartest thing that Jacob has done since we met him on this show. But he got the land back, and he's got a plan that he's going to propose to the bishop. And so he's telling Clarissa to wish him luck. And she tells him, and she's fixing his tie, getting ready for him to go. She said, if you need luck, that ought to tell you this is foolish, what you're planning on doing. Because we all know that she does not want him to go back running to the bishop. Okay, we knew that from last season. She just didn't want him going groveling back. Okay, so she's not up for that. But he tells her, he said, well, pray for me then. And she said, well, it ain't going to do no good, but I'll try. Like that. I don't know what kind of church people these are, y'all. So anyway, they show May and the bishops outside. They're having breakfast. Well, not outside, but they're in their breakfast room having breakfast. And they're discussing the strategy that they're going to use to make sure that what happened between Mac and Gigi doesn't turn into like a nationwide scandal and stuff, because they had enough scandal in their family. And May's sitting there holding the baby. Obviously, the maid has turned the baby over to her. And while they're sitting out there, Gigi comes out because she's on her way to go to the police department. I forgot to tell you that when she was at the hospital, the man investigator told her he's going to be giving her a call so she can come down to the station and give him a statement. Okay? So she was up actually getting ready to head out to go take care of that business. And so she comes in, she overhears May telling the bishop that May had been telling him that they're going to paint her as a hero. She did this in self-defense. And she comes in on the tail end of May saying Gigi's a hero. So she didn't even hear the whole conversation, which was basically, like I said, Lady May just making her plans on what she was going to say to the media to cover up what has really happened between Gigi and Mac. So she hears that, and Gigi's like, you think I'm a hero? Or you call me a hero? And so May tells her, she says, yes, we're just trying to decide what's going to go on and how we're going to, let the story go out, that you're a hero. You did it in self-defense and whatnot. And so that's when Gigi say, oh, yeah, I almost believed you, Lady May. So we all know, like I said, Gigi, like me, she knows Lady May. I don't believe Lady May. Lady May is not concerned about Gigi, and that's going to come out soon, and very soon, too. So anyway, May tells her that she was up all night praying, and the bishop co-signed on and said, yes, she was up all night. He didn't say she was praying, but he said she was up all night. So then Aaron comes along, and he's still looking for Kevin in the daylight with a flashlight, honey. Like I said, it's obvious that he is probably in love now with Kevin, because if you remember, when he first came there, he had his eye on Kevin the whole time, but Kevin wasn't paying him any attention. Kevin was not interested in him. Kevin's mind was on Charity, okay? But Aaron, apparently, after their little encounter, he's more than likely call himself in love, okay? So he's looking for him, and the bishop tells him, no, he's not here. He's gone on to the office, to do some work. Okay, and so Gigi's getting ready to head out, and Aaron stops her and tells her that he'll meet her at the church before she goes to the police department, because he wants to go over her statement with her, the one that she's going to give to the police and everything. So May tells her, don't you worry about it, Gigi. Everything's all right. You didn't do anything wrong. And she reassures her in her cunning way that everything's going to be all right. She's got to convince Gigi to put on this act too. She's just got to convince her so that everything looks authentic when she writes this narrative for the media. Okay? So anyway, then they show Charity. Charity is in Tennessee with Jabari, having a good old time, making her music and listening at the songs that she's written for him. And she's loving it, and he's congratulating her. She's hugging him and everything. And he's getting ready to introduce her to some people. He wants to introduce her to some other people, but she tells him just give her a minute because she's going to call Kevin and check on the baby. And, at this point, I really believe that Charity still loves Kevin. There's no way she's falling out of love with her husband that quick. I think she's just afraid, and she's just kind of got her guard up now since he told her he was struggling with homosexuality. He didn't tell her he was gay. He told her he was struggling with it, and he, pretty much let her know that that's not where he's trying to go in his life. And but she could not recover from what he told her, basically. She even, if you remember, last season she lost one of her twins. That's why she only has one baby now. So anyway, I just had to go back a little bit with you. So anyway, when she calls Kevin and asks him how he's doing, he's glad to hear from her. And he tells her, now, Lady Maynem did not want Charity to know what happened just yet. She even told Kevin not to tell Charity. But Kevin told her when she asked him, how did the night go? He said, well, the night with the baby, everything went fine. And so Charity's like, what happened? And so against Lady May's wishes and against his better judgment, he tells Charity that Mac is dead and that Gigi did it. And it was at that moment that I knew Kevin told her that on purpose, because he wanted her to hurry up and come home. He misses her. So his encounter with Aaron didn't faze him at all. It made him feel guilty and ashamed, but it didn't faze him at all. He no more likes Aaron than he did in the first place. Aaron took advantage of his vulnerability that day. Okay, but he's letting Charity know, you need to come on home, basically. I want you to hurry up and come home. And she does. She reads his mind and she decides to change her plans and come on home early that night. And so she starts telling him that I'm so glad that we're friends and everything. And at this moment, Kevin don't want to hear that. He does not like it at all. His face drops. He frowns. He pulls the phone from his ear because he don't want to hear nothing about being friends. He wants her to say, baby, I want you back, is what he wants to hear. He obviously still wants to be with her. And when they get off the phone, you can see it. It's just all over him that he's hurt. He don't want to hear nothing about no friends. Okay, that broke him when she said what she said. So then they show in the next scene, Gigi is at the church being comforted by her brother, by Jacob. You know, he's been a butthole to her, but he's hugging on her and comforting her at this moment. He's totally on her side. He's always been on her side against Matt, though. And as they're talking, and he says something to her about, you know, the fact that he's left Daisy's church, and he lets her know that he is thinking about coming back. It's not a closed idea for him to come back to their church, Calvary. And so she gets excited when he tells her that. She's like, oh, you gonna come back to Calvary? And he's like, yeah, it's not, I'm still open to it, you know. And so while they're talking and he walks her to her office, he lets her know that somebody is waiting on her. And of course, that somebody that's waiting for her is Darius. And he's sitting in her office, and she looks back there at him, and she's got to deal with the fact that this man has been calling her and she has not yet called him back. So she finally goes in to talk to him, and she apologizes to him for not returning his phone call. But when he looks at her face, because I'm sure he's heard what's happened, but when he looks at her, he takes her hat off her head because she's got this baseball cap on. He looks at her, sees her face, and he's in utter disbelief. You could tell it really just hit him hard, and he hugs on her like a man is supposed to do. And he's trying to comfort her because he sees she's obviously been through something very traumatic, okay? So then they show May. May is in the office trying to call Mavis, but Mavis doesn't answer, okay? So then they show Darius and Gigi. They're walking through the sanctuary, and he wants to know if there's anything that he can do to help her in this situation. And she tells him she can't really think of anything, but she does have to convince those cops that she didn't go to Mac's house with malicious intent. See, that's the thing right now. These investigators are trying to determine whether she had malicious intent and whether to call what she did murder or not. And whatever report that they come up with and pass along to the district attorney, it's up to the state to determine now whether or not they're going to prosecute her. That's usually the process, and that's what she's concerned about. So it really is up to those investigators what they tell and how they write up the report about her. So that's why it's very important that she gets her statement right. And that's why she has Aaron there to help her. Okay? So Darius asks her, the atheist now, he says, have you prayed about it? Because he knows she's supposed to be a preacher. She's supposed to have some kind of faith. He said it might help. So she says, no, God probably won't listen anyway. And he can't believe, he's looking at her like she's crazy. He's like, what? You know, he can't believe that she would say that. So I'm wondering if Darius is having some type of religious, spiritual experience that he's just not talking about, y'all. I don't know why I thought about that, but in that moment I thought about maybe he's having some type of moment, you know? So anyway, she tells him, she says, I gotta go because I need to go and practice my lines. And you know, these are the lines that Aaron is going to give her in their meeting. So he hugs her and lets her go. So then they show Jacob. He's sitting there having a meeting with the bishop. And he's trying to convince him that Basie Skanks is completely out of the picture for good. And he says, I've got the land deed to prove it, because he bought the land back from Basie. So the bishop looks at him and reminds him of how he and Skank staged that protest in his office because they was going to destroy him last season. So the bishop asked Jacob, he said, so if you come back to this church, what are your plans? Because Bishop is trying to tell him that, Jacob is telling the bishop, he's like, do you know what we could do together? We could do so many things together. I got these plans. I got this land and I got plans and ideas, right? And so the bishop is like, go ahead and tell me what your plans are. So Jacob's plan is he wants to be the bishop's co-pastor. Now, y'all, a co-pastor is equal to the pastor. He has the same rights and authority that the pastor would have. That's what Jacob wants. But we all know Jacob isn't ready. And the bishop knows that he's not ready. See, Jacob don't want to be up under anybody's authority. He wants to be equal to the bishop. He's always wanted to be equal to the bishop because for some reason he thinks he can do a better job at running that church. And I believe if the bishop were to give him the position as co-pastor, he'd eventually try to take his job or he'd try to take over his church. Okay? I can see that in Jacob. I just see it, So anyway, and he's being driven by his wife. Clarissa is like that. So she would probably try to push him to doing something like that. So anyway, when he says this to the bishop, because he says, you could use the help. Gigi isn't pastoring right now. You could really use my help, bishop. Now, I couldn't believe how arrogant Jacob was being. He made me mad because he needs to humble himself. You the one need a job. You're the one that needs the bishop's help. So how is he going to come there proposing to him that he puts him in some position that he's not ready for, instead of asking the bishop, Dad, what can I do for you? What do you need me to do? That would be a better question for Jacob to ask the bishop. And I feel like, y'all tell me what y'all think in the comments. I feel like that's one of the main reasons the bishop won't promote Jacob to the position he wants to be in, because Jacob has not yet humbled himself. He feels like he's entitled to be a preacher and all this. He doesn't see it. See, what he doesn't understand about the difference between him and Grace. Grace was never seeking or looking to be a pastor of the church. He's striving for a position that he ain't even ready for. Okay? So anyway, the bishop looks at him and the bishop say, Jacob keeps saying, we could do this, we could do that, And the bishop tells him, he says, if I need help, let me get it in my own way. Okay? And he says that he needs a co-pastor about as much as he needs a cane to walk with. And I knew at that point, it was out. Jacob can forget that. Okay? So then after that scene, they show Aaron goes into his office with all these boxes. He never really unpacked. It's just a bunch of stuff in the office. He tried to call Kevin. I said, oh, that Aaron in love, honey. And he calls him, but of course, Kevin's phone goes straight to voicemail. And so he leaves him a message to call him back. Okay. Then they show Sophia. Okay. Sophia, because I know, we all wanted to know what happened to Zora after we found out that Isaiah was verbally abusing her. And if he was verbally abusing her 9 times out of 10, he might have been physically abusing her too. But we ain't got to that point yet. But she's walking with Zora, I guess after school or on that lunch break or something like that. And she's asking her about Isaiah and has she talked to her. And Zora's like, yeah, we had a talk. She can be real short and smart mouth when she want to be. I don't really like that little girl, but she plays that part very well. And so Zora tells her, look, I appreciate your concern, but she's basically paying very little attention to Sophia's advice that she's trying to give her. Sophia tells her she needs to leave that boy alone. You need to end it with him. You do not need to talk to him anymore. And so, of course, Zora is bucking against that. And Sophia tells her, this is not the Zora I know. The Zora I know would never let a man talk to her and treat her like that. Or let a boy talk to her and treat her like that. And so Zora has to think about what she's saying. At one point, Sophia was getting ready to walk off and leave her where she was. And I was so glad for that. Sophia needed to stop trying to run behind Zora to get Zora to use some common sense. But she thinks about what she says. And so that's when Sophia tells her, she says, you know what, as she's walking out, she says, fine, just stay with him. So when she tells Zora that, Zora thinks about it. And she finally agrees that she's going to end things with Isaiah. And Sophia's like, really? She's like, yeah, I'm going to end it. And so she tells Sophia that she's going to need her to help her find a new boyfriend, basically. And Sophia agrees. She says, I'll make it my summer job. And really, she just needs to stop and just finish school. Don't even worry about no little boys. But that's another story, okay? So anyway, Aaron is coaching Gigi on what to say on their way into the police department. He tells her to tell the police that once he was choked, that Mac was choking her, trying to kill her, and then that's when she picked up a bottle, and after she picked up the bottle and swung the broken bottle, she doesn't remember anything after that. That's what he told her to tell her. So they're in there, and Gigi tells the investigator exactly what Aaron tells her to tell him. And the investigator keeps asking. He said, everybody that comes in here, every murder suspect claims that they don't remember anything. They claim a case of amnesia. And she's like, I don't remember anything. I'm telling you, I don't remember. Well, he said, well, something had to happen after that. Something happened after you stabbed Mac. What happened? And then he had to remind her that you had to have called 911. And she said, yeah, I called 911. And so the investigators trying to determine, did you call immediately or what? What happened? Did you wait a little while before you called? And so at this point, like I said, they never thought about that. The investigator was like, how much time passed in between the time you stabbed him and you called 911? See, at this moment, they didn't think about that. They did not think about that part. And I knew that that was going to come back up because I thought about it from the beginning. It was going to come up. Okay, so she thought about it. She got real quiet. She looked at Aaron because Aaron ain't thought about that. He had no response for that part of the conversation. He didn't, there was no comeback. So he abruptly ended the meeting. He said, this meeting is over. And so they get up, basically. That was the end of it. And the investigator leaves them alone. And they're sitting there looking stupid. Gigi looking stupid because she ain't thought about all of that. Okay, talking about she don't remember nothing. But you had to remember something because you called 911, So anyway, then they showed Jacob. Jacob and them went back home and told Clarissa the bad news and how bad that meeting went with the bishop. And she told him that she wasn't surprised at all. She told him, she said, I told you that it wasn't going to work out. For she knew that the bishop was going to reject his offer, And so Clarissa tells him at that point that every time he doesn't listen, bad things happen. She talks to him like she's his mother. And that's one of the things that get on people's nerves about her. She said, I told you, every time you don't listen, bad things happen. But he doesn't say anything. He just lets her talk to him like that. And the whole time that they're talking and having the conversation, she's making him a sandwich. And she offers him, she tells him, she says, why don't you just call Greg? And he's like, Greg who? She said, Greg from The Voice of Life. She said, you can ask him to hook you up with a TV deal and you can make some money like that. But Jacob was like, I'm not calling him. She said, he said, that's the dude that tried to talk to you behind my back. He says, what do I look like partnering with a man that tried to talk to my wife behind my back? And she told him, you look like a man with a job, And he thought about it. He said, I don't know about that. I don't want to go down that road right now. So Clarissa slides him this sandwich that she's made for him. And then suddenly he asks her, he looks at the sandwich and he asks her, he said, that's for me? She said, yeah, I made this sandwich for you because you don't need to be hungry. You need your strength for what you're dealing with. It's, her man can't be starving and hungry and whatnot. And so at that moment, he gets an epiphany. He says, I know what to do. So, but at this point, we don't know what his plan is when she passes him that sandwich. They don't show that yet, okay? So then they show Gigi. Gigi goes to talk to the bishop about how bad the meeting went at the police department because he wanted to know, how the meeting goes. She says it didn't go too good. And she sits down and she talks to him and she says, she said, if I go to prison, Daddy, will you please make sure that Sophia's dad doesn't get custody of her? For whatever reason, she don't want the daddy to have Sophia. So she tells him to make sure that doesn't happen. And the bishop tells her, he says, I don't think you're going to prison. Because he says this was self-defense. He's convinced that what happened to her was, self-defense. And then Gigi reminds him, she says, yeah, Dad, I know that. But she says they also know, the investigators know how she harassed Mac and how she also vandalized his car. So the bishop then assured her that the family, all of them, they're going to do whatever's necessary to make sure that she does not go to jail. They're going to fight this thing. And she's like, well, what if that doesn't work? He says, well, God will make a way. Okay? So that's the meeting she has with her dad, okay? So let me tell you, Kevin is in a bad way. He's really having trouble accepting what he did with Aaron. So he barges into one of the counseling sessions that he usually attends to tell the leader. I mean, he hollers. There's a whole group of people sitting there listening to this counselor talk. And he yells at them. These people looking at him like he's crazy. He's all irate and hollers at him. He says, I screwed up. I mean, he was talking about Aaron, of course. And he says, he let them know them treatments, them epicac treatments and stuff that they were doing. He said, it doesn't work. And it's all a lie is what he's telling everybody. He says he thinks that the treatments are pointless, and he's telling the people that they need to figure out who they are and that they're just lying to themselves. I mean, he goes off. The people are looking at him real crazy. And while he's doing all this yelling and screaming, the counselor, the teacher in the group comes over to him, and he's trying to console him and comfort him and tell him everybody makes mistakes. You've got to do the work that's necessary to succeed in this class. It's going to be all right. Everything is cool, but, you know, Kevin is not here. I mean, he's mad. He's extremely mad. And I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the fact that Charity told him that he's a friend instead of, you know, trying to get back with him. He's hurt about that as well. So he's taking it out on them. So if at some point he leaves, okay, he done interrupted this man group and he leaves. Then they show Gigi. She goes back to the sanctuary. And she finally decides to pray. And she prays this heartfelt prayer and tells the Lord that her heart, Lord, you know my heart. And he does know her heart. The question is, does she know her heart? Does she know why she went to Mac's house for real? Oh, God knows, but do you know, Gigi? So anyway, later on that night, Charity finally makes it home to Greenleaf, to the Greenleaf mansion. She comes in and she's talking to everybody, and she's trying to actually talk to and console Gigi. But Gigi and the rest of the family, they want to hear about her good news and everything that's going on with her in Tennessee, because they're trying to take their minds off what happened with Mac, you know. And so she sits down and she starts telling them how everything's going well. She tells them that Jabari has been so supportive, and that's when Meg jumps in and says, I bet he has, you know, which I thought was funny. And then she tells them how the producers want to order some more songs for her. So she's doing really well in Tennessee. Her dreams are coming true, and she's basically making money is what she's doing. So things are going well for her. And so Charity tells them that Kevin told her the news. When May asks, how did you know about Gigi? She says, well, Kevin told me. So Charity gets up and she says, well, I'm going to go up here and check on the baby. And she's going to go talk to Kevin. So she gets up and she leaves. And May tells the bishop, she says, see, Kevin ruined her trip when he called him. They didn't want her to know about it. So May addresses that after Charity leaves the room. So Charity goes upstairs to see the baby and everything. And when she goes up to the baby's room, the maid is walking out. She's laid the baby down to sleep. She says, where's Kevin? Because she's calling and looking for Kevin. And she asked the maid, where's Kevin? And the maid tells her that he's not home. And she said, he asked me to watch the baby until, you know, while he's out. And so when she goes and looks at the baby, she walks over to a dresser in the baby's room and she finds a letter that Kevin has written her. And she looks at it and she reads it, and whatever was in that letter, it kind of devastated her. You know, she starts crying and shaking because she gets really emotional. I don't know what was in the letter, but I assume it had something to do with him leaving or whatever. But I don't know if he told her what he did, but he did leave her a letter. Okay. Okay. So then they show the bishop and Lady May. They're in the bedroom that night. And he sees that something is wrong with her. And he sits down beside her. And he asks her what's wrong with her, if he did anything to her. And she tells him, no, it's not you. She said she starts telling him a story about Mac and her daddy, Henry, when they were children, about some bar story she was telling him about, because the daddy used to get drunk. And she lets him know that Mac wasn't always the monster that he turned out to be in the end. And she tells him that Mac was very sensitive and that she believes he became the monster that he is. And this is when she confesses to the bishop about what had happened to her. She says she believes that Mac became the way that he was from watching his daddy do what he did to her. Now, like I said, this is the first time that May has confessed and told the bishop what Henry did to her. And so it really, really kind of threw him for a loop, and all he could do was hug and hold her. Okay? So, you know, I'm pretty sure it devastated him to find that news out. So then after that particular scene, Aaron comes to Gigi's area of the house She's up the next morning getting ready to take care of her business, and he comes and he knocks on her door because she's staying in a suite in the Greenleaf mansion. And he knocks on the door the next morning, and he came to tell her he had some good news for her. And the good news he had for her was that the prosecutors have miraculously decided to not pursue charges against her. And she's blown away. She's like, what? Now, I don't know what Aaron did, but the prayer that she prayed must have gotten answered, y'all. So after he tells her that, she hugs him, and she's so happy about it. I'm like, oh, look at her. They're not going to press charges, which I knew she wasn't going to prison, but she is going to have to deal with her situation. She's going to have to search her own heart and deal with her own demons concerning Mac. I got a feeling there's some stuff that she hadn't told us. I don't know, but I feel like there's more to Gigi's story, because I don't believe she just came home to chase Mac down. I think it's more to it. I wonder sometimes if Gigi was molested by Mac. I don't know. So anyway, she goes outside to like a dock area at the lake on the Greenleaf property, and she's standing out there looking, and all of a sudden her consciousness hears Mac's voice, and he says to her, he says, you know how many times I prayed not to go to jail? And she's looking around, and he said, hundreds. Do you know how many times I prayed not to go to jail? So I don't really know exactly what that meant for her in that moment when she heard his voice ask her that, because she prayed, that's what she was praying for, not to go to jail. So it really kind of made me think that, yes, once again, she's guilty of something where Mac is concerned. She did. I think what she did was murder where Mac was concerned. It was a kind of a murder, not murder, not premeditated murder, but she's guilty of something. And Gigi's going to have to deal with that because it went off very strange. That was like the end of the episode right there. So I don't know fully, even though I've seen episode 10, but at that moment, I don't know exactly what that meant when she heard Mac's voice. But this episode was really, really good to me. Some people say it was very slow. I mean, some of this stuff was slow, but it wasn't slow to me. It was like reading a good book. It was a good, steady pace. Some very interesting things happened. I want to know what Kevin is. I want to know where he's ran off to. And I think, well, as a matter of fact, we know where he is because we find out in episode 10. But, yeah, it was good. It was really good. And I would love to get some feedback on what you think is going on with Lady Mae. I just don't believe that Lady Mae is being sincere about her concern for Gigi. She never really did care for her. I really think she's mad with her for killing Mac. I don't know what's up. I don't know what other kind of secrets she got. But I think she's mad with her, So, until episode 10, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you and bye-bye.